first speaker this evening is Mary Aileen Phillip.
Hello, my name is Mary Aileen Phillip. I have been inspired by the quote from Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I want the composition of the states to be more representative of the ordinary, hard-working people of District 3 and 4. When the states decided not to implement the decision of the referendum on electoral reform, they lost credibility. I will be accountable and represent new thinking. In the district, for the district, I'm a local resident, having lived for 38 years in Westmark Road. I'm approachable and knowledgeable about the area. I've taken many issues to the parish assembly that affect the quality of life of the residents. You will be able to contact me easily by telephone, email and face-to-face. I will be an advocate for you. I'm 54, which is a good age to seek election. I have relevant work experience in youth work and lecturing. I'm well educated, having a BA and master's degree. I'm a good team player, organised, can work to deadlines. I'm used to reading and analysing long policy documents. Having worked in the public sector, I will push for more joined-up, collaborative working between states departments. I'm a mum of a teenage daughter who recently completed her primary education at First Tower School. I understand the challenges that working parents face and will campaign for more flexible working conditions and affordable childcare. I will work closely with the Social Security Department to ensure that initiatives such as the Back to Work scheme are effective. Having a teenager and working with teenagers, I know more needs to be done to promote mental well-being in schools and colleges through the youth service. Social media has transformed teenage social life, sometimes with unintended consequences. I would work hard to establish a student loan scheme for Jersey students who wish to study at a college or university. Local people need to be better prepared for the local job market. Companies who need to apply for licences to bring workers in must be made to train or give apprenticeships to locally qualified people. Promote local talent rather than import outside consultants. I have been a carer for my elderly mum. I can appreciate the challenges the growing elderly population face. More support must be provided to enable people to stay in their own homes longer. The proposed redevelopment of the hospital must be reviewed. I support the expansion and refurbishment on the current site. Overdale is very hard to get to and will increase traffic congestion in the area. There will also be increased parking and road congestion with 187 homes being built on the old JCG site and with the redevelopment of Maison de Ville. I will represent you and your concerns over these issues. Diversifying the economy is essential, and using the internet to create business opportunities is a way forward, both for existing local business to develop trade online and with the creation of industries such as data storage in Jersey. Businesses need to get more help by reducing red tape and the implementation of the eGov initiative, moving more state services online. More tourism with Europe should be developed. I would defend all the green spaces and parks and campaign for more allotments. The constables should be removed from the states. Based on my education, employment and long-term residency of the district, I will be able to contribute fully and rep this district passionately in the States Chamber. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Jackie Hilton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making the time to attend this evening. My name is Jackie Hilton. I have 3 young children who still live at home, and I've lived in the district for 32 years. I was first elected to the role of deputy for St Helier's number 3 and 4 districts in 2002. I was re-elected in 2005, 2008 and 2011, topping the poll on all 4 occasions, a fact of which I am very proud. I was a centennial in the parish of St Helier between 1999 and 2002, and I'm Vice Chairman of the St Helier Youth Committee and member of the St Helier Accounts Committee. Also, I'm a trustee of Shop Mobility, an organisation which provides wheelchairs and electric scooters to the disabled in order they can shop independently. Recently, I have been the acting chair of the Health, Social Security and Housing Scrutiny Panel. Previously, I have held the post of Vice President of the Environment and Public Services Committee, Assistant Minister at Housing and at Home Affairs. I have an exemplary attendance record at parish assemblies, which is very important to me, challenging on your behalf the inappropriate granting of liquor licences and generally safeguarding your right to a quiet and peaceful life in St Helier. Representing my constituents, whether in a personal capacity, supporting them with planning, housing or social security issues, to name but a few, or as a group, is a major part of the work I do on your behalf. I believe a district deputy is first and foremost a conduit between the people and the government, and it is vitally important those people you vote in are there to represent your best interests and not their own. I believe my record speaks for itself, whether this involves campaigning with residents to permanently close unruly licensed establishments, safeguarding our greenfield sites at the Pucalay and other locations, or lobbying for traffic calming measures in La Grande Route de Montalabé. You can rely on me to see the issues through to the end. Indeed, the transfer from Cloves to the parish did take a long time, but we got there in the end, unlike the residents of Moffont, who are still waiting 30 years later for theirs to happen. Times have been getting tougher in Jersey and probably about to get a whole lot tougher. The health budget is coming under increasing pressure as new drugs are developed. People have a greater expectation of the treatments they are offered, and coupled with an ageing population, tough decisions will have to be made to how we are going to fund the health service. I know from talking to people on the doorsteps, in supermarkets and on the street, people are concerned as to how this is going to affect them, especially the elderly on low fixed incomes. We must, as a government, be sure your taxes are targeted effectively and savings are achieved without impacting on those frontline services I believe the public want. It would be dishonest of me to stand before you this evening and promise I will not support tax increases. But the reality is, if we are not going to have any cuts in frontline services, taxes will have to be increased somewhere. What I promise you is this: I will do all I can to make sure that when this happens, any increases are applied fairly and equitably across all income groups. If this means the ceiling on social security contributions is raised, and in doing so affecting those on higher incomes, then so be it. I do not agree that older people or those on low income should be bearing the brunt of additional taxes, whilst those earning six-figure sums are sitting pretty. It goes without saying, I have consistently voted against GST on food. I will promise you now, I will not support an increase in GST on food. The states have achieved a lot in the past 3 years, but we must do better. Whether it is safeguarding employment opportunities for local people, providing more affordable and social housing, being more robust about how we apply immigration caps through work permits or time-limited contracts, in order we import the skills we need to deliver the services we want, without sucking in more minimum wage earners who then invariably join our ever-increasing housing waiting list. I want to finish by touching on a report I co-authored with a colleague of mine on the scrutiny panel into the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. This report resulted in... Thank you.
Third person to speak is Mike Higgins.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Higgins, and I've had the honour of being one of your 4 deputies for the last 6 years. For the benefit of those who don't know me, I'll begin by giving you a short biography. I'm married with 2 adult children and have lived in the district for 37 years. I was educated in England and Canada, and among my academic, professional and business qualifications, I have an honours degree in economics from the University of London and 2 postgraduate qualifications. I've also had wide experience in the aerospace and construction industries and have worked in the fields of education, youth work and financial regulation. Between 1977 and 1995, I was a lecturer in economics, law and banking at Highlands College, and between 1995 and 2007, I worked for the Jersey Financial Services Commission, where I was responsible for drafting laws that have led to the introduction of a depositor compensation scheme, the General Insurance Mediation Law, and the Financial Services Ombudsman Scheme. I was also an officer in the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve and I've organised the Jersey International Air Display for the last 18 years, and was responsible for turning it into an award-winning international event that is now known all over the world. It now brings more tourists to the island than any other tourism event, and has contributed millions of pounds to the Jersey economy over the years, as well as helping raise money for British military charities. Anyway, enough of that. As an individual, I've always believed in straight talking and telling it how it is. I also believe in honesty and integrity in politics, something which I believe is lacking in Jersey, and I also detest political spin. It's said, for example, that there's only one political party in Jersey, the Reform Party, but this is not true. There are two other parties in the States, the Constables and the Establishment Group, with the latter fielding candidates as independents who then join their fold after taking their seats. I can also tell you that as a matter of pride, that I have kept all my election promises and that if I'm re-elected, I will continue to do so. In the States Assembly, I've played a very active role in trying to hold ministers and public and civil servants to account. I've done this as chairman of the Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel and by intensive questioning in the States Assembly. As a member of the Privileges and Procedures Committee, I played a major role in bringing forward the Freedom of Information Law that will come into force this January and which should make our government much more accountable and transparent. A great deal of my time, however, has been spent helping people with their problems, the state's departments, agencies and the legal system. Examples of the latter are listed in the election manifesto that has or should be delivered to your homes. It also records some of the propositions that I successfully brought before the states. What I've learned through my time in the States is that our political, economic and legal systems are broken and in need of major overhaul, and the same is also true of some of our civil and public services. I also believe that we've been badly let down by successive councils of ministers and by a number of states and public bodies that haven't been acting in the best interests of the island or the people of Jersey. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the detail, but you'll find a great deal of it in my election manifesto, so although it's long, please take the time to read it and it'll tell you what's been going on behind the scenes. However, in summary, they failed us by not diversifying our economy. Instead, they put all our eggs in one basket, the finance industry, which because the 2008 recession was a finance-led recession, means we've had to endure six years of recession. And there are also more storm clouds on the horizon, which could prolong it further. They failed us by mismanaging the public sector finances through their tax policies. 0-10 has resulted in a loss of business taxation, so that personal tax now represents 82% of all taxes rather than 43% 5 years ago, and most companies now pay nothing. It also resulted in GST being introduced and going up to 5%. And now, because tax revenues have fallen, we now have another black hole of £95 million, which will probably result in GST rising by another 5% or leading to drastic cuts in public services. We desperately need a fair and balanced tax system. Why should companies not pay taxes? And why should some 111Ks pay less tax than some marginal rate taxpayers? They've also failed to deliver on their policies to bring in affordable housing or to deliver jobs for our people. They've allowed the population of the island to skyrocket so that our roads, schools and hospitals are under strain. They have no effective means of reducing population growth, and they're actually talking about allowing it to rise from the current figure of 100,000 to 120,000, while at the same time planning for a new hospital for 150,000 people. If you want a politician who's prepared to speak out and fight for your rights and interests, then please give me your vote on the 15th of October. Thank you.
Mr. Ted Vibert, please.
Before I start, can I say to you all that I haven't moved here because I don't like the rest of the table. I've moved here because I recently had an eye operation and my sight at the moment isn't terribly good, but it will be in about 4 weeks' time. And that's the reason why I have to be a little bit higher than everybody else. Now, when my good friend Andrew Green decided to go for a senatorial seat, this created a vacancy in the district. And I hope I can persuade you to let me take his place and become one of your deputies. I've lived in the district now for a number of years, and I've been very active within the community of First Tower. And in that time I've been chairman of the First Tower Community Association, and we've had some major successes in making First Tower a more pleasant place to live. For example, in conjunction with the probation service, we've transformed the area around the Martello Tower into what a letter writer to the JEP described as a floral fantasy. And those of you who've seen it and passed it, I think will agree with that description. More importantly, we run the island's largest youth club, the Hangout, which is in the old Sun building. We've converted it, equipped it, and it's now got all the latest gizmos to appeal to young people. Now, at this meeting tonight, I really want to send out a very clear message to all voters that I stand in particular positions on major current issues. I don't want you to vote for me if you approve of GST on food, children's books, clothes, baby needs and heating oil. Or if you want to keep constables in the States. Or if you're happy that £24 million was wasted on a health computer system that doesn't work and has been scrapped. Or that £200,000 was given to make a film that will never be made by a company called something like We Can Do It. Well, my view is we've been done by them. Now, in the last year, for the first time in our history, we spent more than we earned. And we have to face this black hole that Mike was talking about, thanks to the incompetence of our Treasury Minister. And also, I don't want you to vote for me if you think our taxation system is fair, when a person earning £6,000 a week pays the same rate of tax as someone earning £600 a week. Or that 50% of our people are living a hand-to-mouth existence and have no cash reserves in an emergency. Now, what angers me is that these things are happening under the very noses of our government, yet they continue to pour £9 million a year into helping unfortunate people in other countries. Now, I'm sorry to have to say this, but I've got an old-fashioned view that charity begins at home. And we need to look after our own hard-working and less fortunate members of our community, and we need to look after them first. And I will be proposing that the overseas aid should be cut down seriously until we are satisfied that our own people are being properly cared for. So please don't vote for me if you're happy that our population is forecast to hit 125,000 in 7 years, thanks to insipid, inadequate and totally useless laws. And please don't vote for me if you think everything is right in this community of Jersey. Let me say to you that I'm not just unhappy about how life is in Jersey for people on low and middle income families, I'm also ashamed to be a Jerseyman because of it. I can't enjoy my life without wanting to do something to help those people. So what can I do to change the picture? Well, as a former senator and deputy, I know how the state operates. If you elect me, I can hit the ground running at the earliest possible occasion. And I intend to take a proposition to end the most iniquitous, disgraceful, unfair part of taxation that was ever invented, which was putting GST on food and children's clothes and baby needs and books and heating oil. I'm also going to put forward, as part of that, a plan that will raise the money to replace revenue lost. And I've detailed some of those measures in the letter that I've distributed to you. Now, in short, this plan calls on thousands of highly paid individuals simply to pay more tax. If we do that, Jersey can become a fairer and more just society. I think we all know that Jersey is governed by the rich, for the rich. And those people are going to fight tooth and nail to maintain that privileged position. But make no mistake, I've got no fear of them, and I proved that when I was last in the States. And I pledge to you that if you elect me, I will give it my best shot. So on election day, I ask you to put a cross against my name so that I can carry out what I've just proposed to you. Thank you.
Richard Rondel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Rondel, and I have had the privilege of being your deputy for the past 3 years. I stand before you to ask for one of your votes in order to be elected on October the 15th. I am a 8-year-old Jerseyman with 3 boys, aged 20, 17 and 12. and for a career, I oversaw the development of my family's farm shop, following a successful career in finance and agriculture. But enough about me. This Hustings is about you, the electorate of St Helier. Time after time, you're faced with candidates standing before you, promising the earth and failing to deliver. Yet again, you have a large number to choose from, and I believe that it is important for you to make the right choice. I have had 3 years to represent you in the State Assembly, and I have always done what I thought was right, but more importantly, what I thought was in your interests as parishioners and islanders. Over the course of my term as your deputy, I have put great emphasis upon trying to enhance community relations in our parish. Having canvassed our district 3 years ago, it was clear to me that there were divides in our society that needed to be bridged. After being successfully elected, I sought to launch the Fête de St Helier Street Party to bring a more vibrant atmosphere into St Helier. I also joined the St Helier Polish Society, as well as joining the First Town Residents Association, very ably chaired by Ted next to me, the St Helier Counts Committee, and becoming a governor at Rouge School. A full list of committees and panels that I sit on and play an active role in can be seen in my manifesto. But the reasons why I am seeking re-election isn't because I'm standing on my track record. It's because I believe I have unfinished business in representing you in the States. We have some major problems at the moment, and I know that I'm right in saying that you are underrepresented in the States. Our streets are not clean enough and our problems go unanswered. In particular, I believe that road safety is a key issue that continues not to be resolved adequately. If re-elected, I will continue to work tirelessly with TTS to address this. As well as this, we need to ensure that enough affordable housing is produced for our youngsters. At present, the stock is too low and the prices are too high. I know from bitter experience of trying to find housing for my eldest son that it can be daunting and sometimes unachievable, and I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones. Following my election, I have brought many questions to the Housing Minister on this matter, and if re-elected, I will continue to do so. I will not stand by whilst potential homeowners are wondering what to do and where to live. The reduction in level of stamp duty exemptions for first-time buyers is concerning. But as well as this, the government needs to be slackening off where it is unwelcome, and I mean small business. If we want to kickstart our economy, the best way to do it is by supporting small business, not strangling it. I want to see more start-up businesses that are exempt from red tape, not beholden to it. Another important decision that has to be made during the next term of office is regards our new hospital. At present, there are rumours that the new hospital is going to be situated over 2 sites, but I believe we have to think long and hard before agreeing to this. Whilst it may be a more cost-effective way of delivering a new hospital, we need to remind ourselves what the purpose of a new hospital is, and this should be taken above all other economic considerations. I believe the purpose is to help islanders when they are most at need. We also need to consider how health is delivered to our islanders, not just where it is delivered. I have a great deal of respect for our frontline doctors and nurses, but I do believe the management side of things needs to be reviewed, and recommendations such as those set out in the King's Fund report of New Zealand should be considered carefully. If you want a deputy who does get things done, is approachable, and most importantly is friendly and willing to work with others, then please consider me, Deputy Richard Rondel, for one of your votes. Thank you.
Mr. Andrew Lewis.
Mr. Constable, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out so goodly numbers tonight. I know England's playing San Remo, and obviously the Hustings is far more important to you. I'm very pleased that you came tonight. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about what I'd like to do if elected in this district. I'm 51 years old, I'm Jersey born, and I've been married to my wife Kate for 19 years. We have 2 teenage sons, and I was educated at De La Salle College and continue my education in the UK, graduating in business studies and tourism. My previous experience in the States has given me an invaluable insight into the workings of government, and if elected, this would stand me in good stead to have an immediate impact. Like many of you, I was appalled that the States failed to implement the results of the referendum. I'm sure this made you wonder, why bothering voting again? However, I would like to appeal to you that voting is still the only way you can help affect change. But if elected, I will bring a proposition to the States to either put to the vote again the results of the referendum or propose a wider range of options, if that's what you demand. Any future commission must be independent, unlike the last process. My prime objective is to serve Districts 3 and 4 as an effective and accessible constituent politician. But if elected, my priorities to St Helier would be to work with the Town Hall and enforcement agencies to maintain and enhance the district's public areas and keep them clean and safe. I'd also like to develop further the Safer St Helier initiative with the Honorary Police, the State's Police and other community-based agencies. It would be my aim to establish a St Helier Community Trust to provide facilities and services for the parish that might not otherwise be financed by the parish. St Helier is the parish that is most affected by traffic congestion. Given the challenge to find more commuter parking options, the residential parking scheme has stood out as the only attempt to ensure that residents of some districts can leave their car near their home. But I know from speaking to some of you that the scheme is not perfect, but with some more work it can be developed, and I will support and help move that process along. I also believe that the states of Jersey should be paying St Helier rates on their buildings and land. This would focus their attention to the value of these assets and perhaps consider disposing of some of them and then reinvesting the funds back into our community. St Helier is not responsible for providing all the housing stock, but at times it seems that way. We need to be more creative in finding solutions to this issue and encourage other parishes to share this burden. If elected, I would also represent you on wider issues facing the states, including those that I consider particularly important, such as extra funding for GP visits to children, an enhanced dental health scheme to extend beyond primary school age, and for those on low incomes, a viable policy for the creation of affordable starter homes, and a right to buy scheme for states' tenants. I believe strongly in the adage that young people are our future. I've helped deliver 2 major youth projects through a charitable foundation that I chair, and I've just completed 3 years as a member of the Youth Court panel sitting in the Magistrates' Court. Enhanced apprenticeship schemes and more emphasis on preparing young people for work would be high on my agenda. I'd also like to see an increase in the range of degree courses available locally. Education, in particular higher education, must be accessible to everyone, regardless of household income. I've been appalled whilst out canvassing this week by many families saying to me they can no longer afford to send their children to university. If elected, I would tackle head-on any inefficiency in the public sector and seek the introduction of policies that encourage economic diversity, such as intellectual property, IT, the digital and e-commerce sectors. That said, we need to consider the balance between supporting local traders and the threat of competition from online shopping. This is critical for St Helier traders. Also speaking to many of you recently, I understand your concerns about immigration. You feel the current policy doesn't go far enough. Instead, I believe a point system should be considered, which would discriminate against people with criminal records and seek to attract the people with the skills that we really need. I see a scheme not dissimilar to Australia, where we can be much more selective. We need new blood in the States, and I sincerely hope that the voters will put their faith in me. I believe that I have the energy, common sense, experience to ensure that the parishioners of District 3 and 4 would be well served. It's great to see so many of you here tonight, as I said earlier, and I would urge you to encourage your friends, your neighbours, your relatives to vote in this election. Thank you for listening.
Laura Milner.
Good evening. I'm Laura Millen, a Jersey woman born and bred and educated at Jersey College for Girls on a scholarship. I'm from working class parents and brought up in States housing. Other than 4 years spent in Liverpool, where I graduated from John Moores University with a degree in journalism, I've lived in Jersey all my life, the last 10 years being spent in St Helier. So why have I chosen to stand for a position within the States? I've always been quite an outspoken individual, probably stemming from having parents from Liverpool and Ireland. I took 2 A-levels at Victoria College, including politics, where I was the only girl in the class. Even at 16, I was able to hold my own in a male-dominated environment. After graduation, I worked within a bank and then became an insurance underwriter. I had no previous experience in either role, but was very successful at both. For the past 5 years, having decided to move into a role more fitting to my skills, I've worked in recruitment. I developed a new portfolio of clients and employment candidates, becoming the highest fee earner in the Channel Islands and UK offices last year. I've been managing the Jersey division of this global company for the past 2 years. It is within this role that I've learned of various issues affecting a variety of individuals from low to high earners, young to old. I've met clients concerned that they're unable to recruit the right skill set into their business, and I've also met people on 0-hour contracts whose recurring concerns are whether they are able to pay their rent that week. I've seen many individuals who are also in full-time employment, but on a pitiful minimum wage and taking home little more than £250 a week. It's impossible with the high cost of living in Jersey for this sum to cover accommodation, food and bills, and so they have to resort to social security for a handout. If you are not already aware, someone on minimum wage in Jersey will need to claim around £9,000 a year from income support and social security supplementation in order to survive. So you, as taxpayers, are subsidising employers paying low wages. Over these past 5 years, I've met many mothers desperate to get off income support, only to tell them that I will be unable to secure them a role with the salary they will require to cover the childcare costs. If elected, I'm intending to bring a proposition to introduce states-funded, means-tested childcare facilities. I've also met with mothers with children of school age needing reduced hours to fit in with school times, but I've had to tell them that part-time positions are a rarity in Jersey, so again I'm unable to help them. Their only option is to claim income support, and you would be surprised at how many people find this very distressing. We have a growing income support bill, but are not providing these mothers with the support required to get back into the workplace. One of my intentions is to try to find ways to achieve this, one of which is to encourage employers to be more flexible and use this valuable resource. A financially independent working parent is a good role model for a child. An unemployed, demoralised one is not. So why reform Jersey? Voter apathy in Jersey is encouraged by an overly complicated process. Many people are put off at the prospect of having to learn about individual candidates on a regular basis. How much simpler is it to educate yourself on just 2 or 3 manifestos and choose the party whose values are most closely aligned with your own? Policies are clear, will be adhered to, and will have more chance of getting through the chamber if there is a body of representatives who are committed to making them happen. Of the 49 states members, there are names and faces who we barely hear of or see, and those from whom we hear nothing at all. Most definitely not in that category are Jeff Southern, Montfort Tadia and Sam Mezig. They are hard-working, visible and committed to social and economic justice. This is the team that I want to be a part of to make Jersey a fairer and more equal place to live. The current makeup of the states is not representative of the population of Jersey. How can we expect little more than a 30% turnout when not only do we have so few young people in the government, but also so few women? How many states members can truly empathise with the 1,000 school leavers unable to get a job, or the 20 or 30-somethings unable to get on the property ladder due to spiralling rents and high property prices? A member of Reform Jersey has recently launched a proposition to investigate the prospect of rent control. We are heading towards a lost generation of young people, and our current government is doing little to help them. There is a proposal for property taxes, which will hurt those in rented accommodation most. We have new developments which are actively marketed to UK buyers, which keep the property market inflated and further out of the reach of first-time buyers. We are also facing more cuts to our health and education services. I want to help address these issues for you all. I, along with the current sitting members of Reform Jersey and the prospective new ones, promise that as a team we will focus on closing the ever-widening division between the haves and have-nots. With propositions already having been put forward for 6 months maternity pay, increases to minimum wage, anti-discrimination and the encouragement of a living wage by the current members of Reform Jersey, the aims are very clear. Just imagine what we can achieve with 8 of us standing up and representing the section of society that includes so many but are so grossly ignored. I put myself in front of you as someone who will work hard, learn this trade and have the confidence of you all who will be my new employers. Thank you for listening.
Mary Osmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for turning out on another blustery night, but it's not raining. My name is Mary Osmond, and I'm Jersey born and educated. I've spent my working life in St Helier, starting at Jersey Telecoms and swiftly moving on to the Midland Bank and continuing in the finance industry. I've always done some form of part-time voluntary work, including the Samaritans, Mustard Seed, Meals on Wheels and Age Concern. I was also a trustee of the Roseneath Shelter for the Homeless for 20 years, until its closure in 2011. I sat on the committee for the Jersey Christmas Appeal for 4 years and became that first female chairman of that charity in 2004. Since retiring, I have dedicated my free time to more voluntary work. I'm a community volunteer with the parish of St Helier and have been both a constable's officer and a vantaneer in the parish, in the honorary police system in Jersey. It has been my work with all these organisations that has energised me to stand for election in the area that I live. My roles have given me a good grounding to listen to people's needs and to act upon them. I'm not interested in being a states member for the sake of it, or to have a ministerial title. I'm more interested in people than I am in playing political games. Talking to parishioners, one of the main concerns is speeding. Having been an honorary officer for over 6 years and a member of the Road Safety Committee, I feel that I have a little more knowledge on this subject than most. I have walked around this area today and I'm amazed at the speeds on the main road of Lochbuckle. It may be that at school times the traffic slows, but I wonder if residents find this a problem. Some of the smiley faces have recorded excessive speeds in this area and others. In fact, on Victoria Avenue, over 100 miles an hour. This is endangering lives, and sadly in some areas some drivers are fatally injured. But there is technology available to enforce speed limits and other motoring infractions such as red lights. If elected, I would work with the constable and my fellow deputies, the police and the states members to bring legislation to enable this modern technology to be used. There is urgent need to sort out town parking, which is a nightmare, and it's not surprising that the town is being deserted and people are using online shopping, when if you manage to find a parking place in St Helier, you're limited to 1 hour. It's no use trying to revitalise the town with various schemes like the late night shopping when it's so unfriendly to park. This also needs a total overhaul and consultation with various departments. I am appalled at the condition that some parishioners live in. Their housing is substandard. We need tighter controls on rented properties to protect tenants. I strongly believe that everyone deserves to live in reasonable accommodation and not be afraid to speak out for fear of eviction. We also need to look at all the derelict buildings in St Helier. They're an eyesore and a potential health hazard. And with such a shortage of affordable housing, how is this allowed to continue? Moving on to island-wide issues. GST is a dirty word in Jersey. It's a ridiculous situation that we're all taxed on our heating, lighting and food bills, and this has to stop. If elected, I would definitely be supporting removal of GST off these vital items. Why should families and the elderly have to choose between heat and eat? I am aware that this issue has again been debated recently and again been lost, but it will continue to dominate the next House. Immigration is a major issue with everyone who cares about this island. It's overcrowded and putting a huge strain on our schools, the hospital and the housing. Enough is enough. We need a proper immigration policy now. States' extravagant spending must be curbed. There's bad management of resources available and too much waste. We heard recently that our future generations may be disadvantaged by reductions in the education budget for the next fiscal year. This is outrageous. The automatic right of the constables to have a seat in the states must be removed. If they want to be states members, they should stand like everyone else and be elected in a true democratic way. I would like to see a community that is catered for on all levels, regardless of age, nationality or income. The recently adopted discrimination law should help those who feel marginalised, but I would like to see our island embrace our various cultures and strive to work together for the good of all. I've spoken long enough, and for those who know you, you know I can speak for ages, but I'm here to listen, and I can say that I will work for you and apply the same dedication in this district as I have for many years in my various voluntary roles. Please consider me, Mary Osmond, for one of your votes on Wednesday. Thank you very much for listening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Toplos. I'm Jersey born, and I've been in hospitality for almost 30 years. I've also been a committee member of the Greek community, and also in 2009 was an honorary officer. Why I want to stand for deputy? Well, my interest is in hospitality and the tourism. And one of the things I want to see is tourism get back to its levels and be more popular again. And one of the other things I want to do is bring back some of the things that were in the past and bring them forward and make them more modern, for not only for the older generation, as for the new generation as well. The other thing which is on my mind is that unemployment and some of the things in the work schemes that are going on at back to work, I want to support that, and because I've been in that situation where I've been out of work, and I've been on these schemes, and they do work. And some of the people at my age don't have any faith in it at all. I mean, they don't believe in some of them. They don't believe that it does work. It does work because it's proven that I've gone and found myself a job, and I am where I am today. And I just want to get people to understand that it does. I just want to get people to understand that it does work, and I'm fully sorry. The other thing I want to do is that things in the I've lost it now, so I do apologise for this. The other thing that I wanted to say is that with road safety, I want to be able to help with PHQ, police headquarters, and with the constables of the parish to make the roads safe. And for civil marriage, yes, I think it should pass. I've been in a civil marriage for almost 2 years, and I like to see people be able to get married over here. And I just want to say I hope everybody votes for me on the 15th of October. Thank you very much.
Last candidate, Christian May.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As yesterday I'm last up, a habit I don't particularly want to repeat on Wednesday. I'm Christian May. I was born, grew up and still live on Lewis Street in St Helier, where 5 generations of my family have lived and worked. I'm proud to be a resident of St Helier 3 and 4. I was educated at De La Salle College before reading law at the University of Nottingham and being called to the English bar in 2007. I returned to Jersey working for the law firm Baker & Partners, primarily involved in prosecution of fraud and drugs cases, and I latterly became head of business development there. In my spare time, I'm particularly proud to be a trustee of Jersey heritage, protecting some of Jersey's most vulnerable but valuable sites. I've got 3 key priorities for the district: safety, investment and the community. People have said to me, why is safety at the top of your manifesto? Surely there's not a problem with safety in this district. This week I've heard of 2 particular instances that disturbed me. One was a close family friend who suffered an assault in Elizabeth Place, and the 3 men that were involved in that were arrested later in possession of drugs. The other one you've probably read about yourselves in the JP, where a man suffered facial injuries during an assault in Parade Gardens. And I go out walking my dog every day and I see bottles and cans and even syringes on the parks in Jersey. And I go out and I hear and see dangerous driving and speeding on the streets around the Puckalay, Queen's Road, Cheapside. And I go out and I hear violent offences at night time in St Helier. And you all deserve to feel safe in your homes. And I don't doubt the good work being done by the Honorary Police and by the State of Jersey Police, but I want to work with them to come up with a comprehensive strategy to improve safety for everyone across the district. On investment, we've got 2 big capital projects happening in this district. You've got the sewage treatment works and the hospital, which I favour as being on one site. And then just down the road from here, you're going to have the JCG redevelopment, which will have a massive impact. Now, we need to make sure capital projects are of benefit to the island, but they don't have a detrimental effect on your day-to-day lives. And that's something that will concern me if I'm elected. I also want to work with the community. If you want to see a good example of community working, then you're sitting in it, in the Lepukale Community Centre. You've been well served by your deputies over the last 4 years, especially Deputy Andrew Green, who hopefully will become Senator Andrew Green next week. But I want to take the good example of places like this community association to Gloucester Street and Rouge Bouillon on Cheapside, where there is no community association, and help the people there who have become disenfranchised. Island-wide, I also have 3 issues that are connected: the economy, education, and innovation. On the economy, I don't deny for a minute we're in difficult financial times, but increased taxation isn't the answer, and squeezing people who are already suffering isn't the answer. I want to see a cut in public spending, not in healthcare, not in education, but in management and administration, and look at core services. On education, we pride ourselves as being an offshore finance centre. Why don't we pride ourselves on being an international education centre? Why don't we have people going out with the skills that they may learn from Durrell about conservation, or from our agriculture industry about dairy, and say, look at what we know, and have people saying, those people were educated in Jersey, that's why they're the best. On innovation, I believe a diverse economy is a strong economy. We can't rely just on the finance industry. And we need to look at what digital can offer us. We need to look at cryptocurrency, design and manufacture on island. But we also need to look at how we can expand agriculture, looking at our dairy industry. It's being popular in China, can we expand that around the world? We're rich in potential over here. Ultimately, the question you're going to ask is, what can I offer you as a deputy? Not everyone will agree with me on all of the issues, but what I can offer you is balance. A balance between someone who's relatively young, but also has experience in law and business. A balance of someone who understands the finance industry, but also has had to deal himself with student debt, credit cards, renting a home. And a balance between someone who has a vision for a stronger, better island, but is connected locally and understands local issues. I hope you will consider giving me one of your votes on October the 15th, and thank you all for being here.
I'll now open the floor to questions.
Please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, can I ask the panel, I understand there have been 16 scrutiny reports this year. Have any of them read them?
We'll start with number 10, please.
I can't admit to reading a large majority of the scrutiny reports. I've certainly read one of particular concern to me, which has been very well written by Jackie Hilton and her committee on adult and child mental health services. I think it's a massive issue, and I think scrutiny have made some very well-made points there, and I hope that the recommendations that they put forward are taken forward by the Council of Ministers, but I won't admit to reading all of them, and hopefully it's something I will do, obviously, as a sitting deputy.
I haven't read any of the at all about this, so I'm sorry I can't answer that one. Thank you.
I'm like Christian, the only one I've looked at is the one that Jackie's done, and it came out of a bit of desperation, I think, with the current mental health of the youngsters, and it's a very good report, and it deserves the backing of the states.
Similarly, it was the CAMS report that I've read, which was a very, very damning report on the mental health provisions that we have in Jersey, where you have 14-week waiting lists for individuals to be attended to somebody, where we have no place of safety for vulnerable adults and children, that we have a service that runs from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, where clearly if you have mental health issues, you don't have them in working hours. Like I said, it was a very damning report that needs immediate attention, and afraid, like I said, that's the one that I've read at the moment. I've also read the property consultation paper, which again is something that will affect the people in rented accommodation most. That's quite an interesting read. As a member of Reform Jersey, our policies are social and economic justice, and we will of course be opposing anything that will put people further into the poverty trap.
I was particularly interested in the one that Richard commissioned, actually. I think it was the film that was spoken about earlier on. I was quite concerned about that because there's real opportunity for Jersey to become a centre for making films, and it doesn't seem to work this time, so I'd like to find out a bit more about that and why it didn't. Yes, I read that one. I've also looked at the Cameron's report because I was a member of the Youth Corps panel and we had to read it because it was very, very important for the work that we did. In the past, I've read numerous scrutiny reports. I've been a state member before, and they're very, very useful aid when you're making policy. And the one I've most recently been looking at is the Green Paper on property tax. This hasn't been scrutiny hasn't dealt with it yet, and I'll be very interested to read their report when they do, because I think they're going to have a bit of a field day with it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As a member of Public Accounts Committee and Corporate Services, I've actually been involved directly with 9 of those reports. As Andrew mentioned, I was the one that wanted investigating the £200,000 grant, which I believe was an absolute nonsense. We've done the Health and Social Integrated Care Records investigation, £12 million, absolutely wasted. They're asking for another £12 million. The car park trading fund, we've had concerns about that. There's been a lot of work and good work done by scrutiny, and I think we need to build on that. As corporate services, we've also been involved in the interim population policy and the budget. Now that's a 140-page report we've done, and I would urge people, please read it. I've got a copy here somewhere, but it's also available online. And we did issue warnings 18 months ago that the state's income wouldn't be what they've said it would be.
I believe my question is, have you read the report?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been involved and read them. Thank you.
Yes, I think the public ought to understand what scrutiny is all about. The scrutiny committees are entitled to get expert people in, quite independently, to look at the particular subject they're discussing. I was the first chairman of shadow scrutiny when it first started, and we had an enormous battle to get what we wanted. Every time we came up with a person as an expert, we were told you couldn't have them, and at one stage I had to go to the States and stop them doing it. So you can't do it. This is supposed to be an independent group. In the last year, scrutiny have done, it's 16 reports. Every time there's a report, I go to the States bookshop, you get it for free, I get it and read it. And actually I brought some with me tonight, because I've had them every meeting we've had, to try and ask people to just have a look at those and see the amount of information you have to have before you can even think of going in the States. I don't believe it's good enough to have read one report, because when if people get in the States, they're going to have to deal with these matters almost immediately. And unless they understand not only just that, but what the population is through the census report, what the budget report said, and that's about that thick and very difficult to read and understand. I think they do that deliberately. And unless you read all that stuff, it's almost impossible to make decisions. So I think anybody who says, I've read one of them, really doesn't deserve to be in the States.
Yes, as a States member, I've had to work my way through these reports and an awful lot of other documents. And in fact, the States could be accused of destroying many forests because the amount of paper that we actually get is phenomenal. I'd just like to make 1 or 2 comments about the reports. I would commend the Corporate Services report on the budget. It was absolutely appalling, and you can see why we're in the state that we are. And you have experts from various accounting bodies laying into the Treasury Minister and the Council of Ministers for what they're actually doing.
It's not our report that's appalling.
No, I made that quite clear. The report is very good. It is basically what they're reviewing. And again, the film one, and again, I would commend Jackie's report on the mental health service. I've been dealing with mental health issues and for children, and I was so pleased she actually did review that area because it's appalling. So, yes, I've read the reports, and they are showing a lot of I would say, failure on the part of government in this island. And what do ministers do normally? They rubbish them. In the case of the Public Accounts Committee, they had one where they even tried to get the internal audit of the state's treasury to rubbish it, but they came to the same findings as the Public Accounts Committee. There is so much arrogance in our government, and they just do not want to hear what scrutiny has to say. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. In 2011, I made the decision when I was re-elected to actually move from the executive to scrutiny because I was deeply concerned about some of the issues that constituents were bringing to me about children and young people and the failings in the system. It would probably be fair to say that I'm incredibly proud that myself and Deputy James Reid of St Wans produced the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Report. It was desperately needed, and actually on the back of that report, the Health Minister committed to wholesale review of the Children's Service, which is something that I've personally wanted for a very long time. It was also something I knew that I wouldn't ever achieve as an Assistant Minister, and that I had to go to scrutiny to do that. And it was a vital piece of work, and it's evidence that you can actually achieve an awful lot by joining a scrutiny panel. Our panel was involved in various major policy work this year. We had the Health White Paper money, the dual site option for the hospital, discrimination legislation and family-friendly policies. And in amongst all that work that just myself and one other person was managing, I also had a chance to read the PAC report on integrated care records because that tied in with the hospital, the interim population policy, also about tasers and the budget. So I would ask that any of my fellow candidates here who get re-elected or elected this year to seriously consider joining scrutiny, because it's a very effective way, in my opinion, of actually achieving something. It's worked for our panel this year, that's all I can say.
I've read two of the reports. I've read one about the CAMS, the Mental Health Service for Young People. I work at Highlands, I have worked in the Children's Service. I have known for a long time the issues that are going on for young people where their needs have not been met. I've had concerns. I know many of the people working in the counselling services throughout the island, and I'm glad that the report Jackie was involved with has been published. I have also read the report about the hospital proposals, whether to have a two-site model, refurbish on the current site, or have a one-site model. My own view would be to have the refurbish on the current site, but I do know that that's coming back to the States when the new Assembly meets. So that's obviously an issue that I've researched and know that many of the constituents are very concerned about.
Thank you. Next question, please. Mr. Sullivan.
Which of their promises? How many people live in that area?
I live in the area. I'm number 3 and 4. I represent number 2. I live in 3 and 4. Could the candidates state which of their promises is their priority and how they will get the 25 votes required in the states to actually get that through?
I'm going to start with John.
What I want to do is the thing that I've actually want to get through is tourism. It's one of the things that I've been in. I've studied for that sort of thing, and it's just an issue that I feel is being neglected over here in Jersey, because it seems to be that financing seems to be the number one thing in Jersey at the moment. I mean, if we can bring a balance between both finance and tourism, it can work. It's something that both industries can work together. I mean, we need something where we can bring something back into Jersey where industries can work. Tourism brings jobs as well. And I feel this is one of the issues that I've learned is only what I can talk about at the moment. Thank you.
Well, I didn't make any promises except that I would work as hard as I could for you. But my priority would be road safety. I think it needs a major overhaul, and to use the technology that we've got available is the way forward, and we've got to get it done soon rather than later. We don't need any more deaths on the roads.
Well, the way to get things done is a political party. As Deputy Higgins already said, there are political parties that we currently have in the States. They just don't want to put a label on themselves. The difference with Reform Jersey is the political party has been formed, and we stand up and we are proud to say, yes, we are a party. It's new, it's different, but it's very difficult to get anything done in the chamber as one person standing alone. We are fielding 8 candidates in this election. If we have 8 people all singing from the same hymn sheet, we've got far more chance of getting things pushed through the States than one person on their own. In terms of priorities, fair taxation, we believe those who can afford to pay more tax should pay more tax. We're opposing any raises in GST and anything that further pushes people in Middle Jersey and below into any more debt or into the property trap or onto income support. With population and housing, current population policy, as has been stated, 120,000. As we are completely underrepresented in St Helier in the States, we should actually have 17 members in the States if we were talking about proportional representation, whereas we have 11 at the moment. It's going to require about the equivalent of 70 of the Maori high-rises to accommodate those 20,000 people coming to the island. We all know they'll be stuffed into St Helier because nobody wants to build in the beautiful green fields in Trinity, in St Lawrence, whatnot, and like I said, because of the massive underrepresentation in St Helier, invariably they will end up here.
As I said in my speech, I, if elected, will bring a proposition to the States to either have a vote again on the referendum or bring a set of new amendments to it. I would like to push through reform in the States. We've just had a number of seats uncontested in the States. Most councils were returned unopposed. A number of deputies have been elected as well. And this is because of the system that we currently have. So my number one priority would be reform of the States of Jersey. And I would work very hard at convincing States members to stop being turkeys and voting for Christmas. Listen to the people. There's going to be a referendum on Wednesday. The result of that referendum must be listened to and acted upon. And if they can't do that, we'll have to have a Royal Commission on something similar so it becomes binding, and a referendum is binding. That was my priority, it's in my manifesto, and I will bring that to the States, and I will convince States members to listen to the people that elected them. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Jeff. My main priority will be, along with many others, but the main one would be housing. We must deliver the housing we promised. We must get that 800 odd people on the housing waiting list down. Now, things are starting to get in motion, but we've wasted 4 years because the island plan that was passed before 2011 was an absolute nonsense. It didn't allow affordable housing. I've seen so many young children and families in inadequate housing accommodation that it leads on to cause social problems, etc., etc. And I've actually dealt myself with 4 suicidal cases within the district. It's horrendous. We need to get that back on. But alongside that, we need to have our proper population policy debate, not the interim one we've got, because we need to, I actually preferred work permit system, but we need to have a big debate on that because we cannot keep growing and growing. But we must provide housing for those that are on the waiting list. Thank you.
Yes, well, I think I made it very clear in my speech that I'll be all for pushing to get this unfair tax situation in Jersey working and to make sure that people who are in very high paid jobs pay a decent rate of tax. The question was, how would I achieve that in the States? I can only go back to the experiences that I had when I was a senator. And what we did, we had a group of about 17 members in the States who all had different views on lots of other things. But if we had a consensus amongst us, we would get together and we would plan our attack. And the most important thing you needed is you needed to have someone who could put together a very convincing proposition and a report and be able to answer in that report the likely questions that the other side were going to come up with. And then that person had to be able to be capable of being able to debate it. Not only just debate it, but take on the other side when they came back with their particular things. And I know there have been some debates about a different form of tax, and they always come up with the argument that if you tax highly paid people, they will leave the island. Now, people don't realise that there are 300 people working for the states of Jersey who earn between $100,000 and $250,000 a year. Are they going to leave Jersey? Are all the people in finance, the accountants, the lawyers, are they going to leave Jersey because you tax them higher? So that argument, in my view, would be very strongly defeated. And if you work as a team together when you've got people of the same view on that subject, and in fact there is a deputy in the House who I work with, this is Jeff. He and I worked a thing with a group of people about changing the taxation system, where I went for the higher one, he went for the lower one, and they wouldn't have the higher one, but they accepted the lower one. And they were furious afterwards when they found out what had been done. So it can be done, and you can win the argument, but it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of talent, and you have to be together on it. I believe I can get those people together on it. We mightn't win it, but I'll tell you what, we could take them pretty close. Because when I look around all the manifestos, I haven't yet found anybody who disagrees with taxing the high income earners. Thank you. Thank you.
It's exceptionally difficult to come up with one priority, and in fact, we could say, for example, jobs, housing, economy, population, fair taxes. They're all of equal importance if we're going to get this island properly sorted and working where we all have a fair society. Anyway, in terms of what I personally want to bring forward, I've been dealing with an awful lot of issues, dealing with individuals who are being badly let down by our government and by our departments and so on. They're listed in this manifesto. And one of the things that I believe could actually help alleviate many of the problems we have is to have a parliamentary ombudsman. And a parliamentary ombudsman is a person who would adjudicate on disputes. At the present time, if you have a problem with a government department, you're probably going to lose. And the reason why is they have Crown advocates who will fight you, they have unlimited public money that they can use to fight you, and you're going to have to go to a lawyer who's going to charge you at least £300 an hour. And how long will that last with all the delays that the states will bring? So we need to bring in institutions to try and make it better and fairer for individuals. Our parliamentary ombudsman would act as a mediator, essentially. He would listen to the dispute and listen to both sides and could make a ruling. He could compel a department to change what it's done. He could compel them to give compensation. That's just one change I would like to see. Now, in terms of the states, how are you going to get that through? Well, you have to understand the way the states works. We've got block voting. We've got the constables. 11 out of 12 normally vote with the Council of Ministers. So if you've got the Council of Ministers against you, you've got them plus the constables, and then you've got the other deputies who I call wannabes. They want to be ministers. And because they want to be a minister, they don't want to blot their copybook. They won't go up against the ministers because they want to join the club. So that's the reality of the system that we have. So I would work with anybody to achieve those aims. So I'm going back to the beginning: population, economy, jobs, housing, and the ombudsman. But you have to work with anyone, but you have to realise the uphill struggle we have to get change in this island. Thank you.
Like Mike, there are lots of priorities. The promise I made to constituents this evening is that if there are tax increases, that they've got to be applied fairly across all income groups. And also, I promised I would not support rise of GST on food. With regard to my priorities, it has to be around the mental health review and the children's service. And the way I'm not planning on taking the policy back. It would be absolutely impossible for me to do that around the mental health review and the children's service. But what I will do is continue to question the Minister
on the reports that we produced and question the Minister about recommendations and to make sure that everything that she's actually promised to do really happens. One of the things that I want to know is why are children going to school hungry? And that's a question that I will be asking is a backbencher. I will be going to the primary schools and asking the heads, why are children coming to school hungry? Because I don't quite sort of understand why that's happening. I want to be sure that the Health Minister, she's pumping extra money, the Health White Paper money, millions extra. I want to be sure that the money that's been put aside for early intervention services for children actually happens. There's been a slight delay in implementing that piece of work, which is really, really disappointing, because if we don't address the problems at a very young age, they just continue to multiply. So as far as I'm concerned, those are the things that are going to be my priority if I'm re-elected next time.
On my priorities, I would really try to support increasing the use of IT, both as infrastructure, supporting the fibre optic cable so that every single householder can have decent online services. People can then develop their own businesses at home. They can work more flexibly. It allows people with children to work at home, and it allows us to develop industries that are here. We can then sell online. We can create new industries. We can also draw in global industries into Jersey that are going to be high value and quite easily accommodated without damaging too much of the natural environment. We can also improve education. Education has changed so much. We can be franchising courses from universities all around the world. We can change the way that people are taught. People can study at home. The possibilities are endless. More creative businesses, and also the states themselves can save a lot of money, and it can make business a lot easier by putting far more of the state's services online. I know that at the moment some people will be frightened by that, but we can set up help centres like in the town hall where there's staff available to help people. But I really believe that we have to think how the internet has changed society so dramatically. Industries have collapsed, retail has collapsed in certain sectors, but new jobs are being created in areas that we don't even know about yet. The success of small people doing stuff on YouTube, it is changing the fabric of society. So I think I could do that by making a coalition of different members of the states who are forward-thinking and can see that we're living in a global world. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Jeff. My priorities are particularly district issues. I want to work to improve community and I want to improve safety in the district. Now, I know in the short term those are going to be things where I'm going to have to put in a lot of hard work. I'm going to have to talk to people in the community. I'm going to have to go and talk to the police, try and bring people together. In the long term, I'd be completely lying, completely naive if it wouldn't require funding from the state. And you're quite right, I'm going to have to be persuasive and get people to give funding for these projects. Now that's going to involve talking to people who've done it before. Jackie, Mike, Richard and Ted have all had experience certainly of building strong community associations, and I'm going to speak to them in the first instance and find out how they made that work. Also, I'm going to have to be persuasive and talk to independents, but also talk to people in reform as well, because I think that across the Assembly, community and safety are important, whatever your particular political background. I'll have to use my drafting skills, as Ted has said, to come up with a persuasive proposition and a persuasive report on the issue. At the end of the day, all I can do is use the skills I've got on my feet and in writing to show that the proposition I want to bring is a strong one, it will benefit the people, and it should have the funding it needs. Thank you.
Next question, please. The gentleman with the brown coat on the back.
Yes, I'd like to know the candidates' views. Recently, Public Health has been talking to France about using their facilities, which are, I believe, are some of the best in the world. And to give an example, a hip operation in Jersey is 12,000, and a hip operation, the same one, in a private medical facility in France is 7,000. we could be saving at least £5,000 per operation and putting a lot of people out of their misery. I'd like to know their views.
I'll start with Mary.
I think that's a really good idea. I think that Jersey is traditionally French society. Just look at the roads names. We need to be developing far more links with Europe. And yes, good savings, good idea.
There is no problem with language. None at all.
Second.
I think any reasonable opportunity to reduce the waiting list is a very good idea. The orthopaedic waiting list at the moment is probably about a year. So there are people out there in Jersey at the moment suffering a great deal of pain and having to wait. If we could have some sort of service level agreement with the French hospital whereby these operations could take place, I think that's a really good idea. I think the only thing that might put off some people, and I've read this in the media in the past couple of days, is the language barrier. Bob, you're saying that there isn't one, but I think in a lot of people's minds there probably would be one, and I think that would concern people, because being away from home is a stressful experience anyway. But I think it's a very worthwhile idea, and it needs to be explored. Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, this is a no-brainer. Basically, we have to provide the best health service and best treatment we can give to our islanders. Now, for example, if the French have got better expertise, they've got better equipment, and they've got the ability to take people quickly, let's utilise those facilities. And I don't care if it's France, the UK, Guernsey, or wherever. We should be providing the quickest and the best treatment for our people. Simple as that. Thank you.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. If what Bob says is true, then it would be ridiculous not to use it. But in fact, Jersey quite often ignores France completely in all sorts of ways. I'll give you an example. I was on the West Park Pool Refurbishment Committee, and we've had the problem with sea litters. I contacted TTS. The TTS said, nothing we can do about it. We're dumping it out there, the tide's bringing it all in, we just have to put up with it. So I contacted a friend in France and asked her if she could find out what they were doing about sea lettuce, which is a real problem in Brittany and Normandy, bigger than it is here. And they've set up a government department with about 50 people and all scientists who are now looking at what can they do with the sea lettuce. So I asked them if they've had any inquiries from Jersey, and you wouldn't be surprised to know the answer was no. And all I did was make one phone call. So I'm actually going over there in a couple of weeks' time because of West Park Pool to have a look at what they're doing. They've even designed vehicles to pick this stuff up. And they're looking at all sorts of commercial operations, making a food out of it. And ultimately somebody's going to come out of that. But it's typical of the way we react in Jersey. We go to England for everything and completely ignore people 20 miles away. It's absurd.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it would be a great scrutiny report topic to undertake. I know some friends of my father's have been over there. Two of them had cancer, and they've been having treatment over there very successfully and got on extremely well. So I think there are opportunities. Also know some people who've been down to Spain and having treatment down there. So I think there are opportunities we could actually look into, absolutely.
Thank you for the question, Bob. I think it's a great idea, particularly as Europe begins to weaken even further. It's going to be even cheaper. But I think we've got to be careful what we wish for as well. It's not quite as straightforward as perhaps we all think. I did have a chat with the Health Minister about this only yesterday and asked her opinion. And she said that, yes, it was economically it was a great idea, but there were some issues, legislation being one of them. So, for example, if somebody comes back from hospital there, the regulations are different here. The support care here is different to in France. So your aftercare, unless it's a really good handover, there could be issues. These are things I'm sure can be overcome, but it's not quite as straightforward as people may think. think. But in principle, I think it's a great idea. We should also be looking at doing more with Guernsey. They haven't got the best facilities in the world, but they have facilities that we could do things together and get an economy of scale, having two hospitals very close to each other. And we're still using the UK significantly as well, and I think we could do more with negotiating better rates with UK hospitals where people feel a bit more familiar in their surroundings, with the language and the culture being very similar. But in principle, yes, actually, absolutely should be investigated further. Thank you.
I spoke to a gentleman in this district who was waiting a hip operation, and he was waiting 12 months for it, so his daughter paid for him to go to Dubai and have it done privately, as he was in incredible pain. He just couldn't afford to wait any longer. It sounds like a good idea, actually sounds quite innovative and quite clever, that if we can reduce waiting lists, then sure, you use the French health service, which is excellent, to bring down those waiting lists. We are considering spending £300 million on a new hospital. You would hope that that would be fit for purpose, where we don't actually have to field out our Jersey residents to other countries in order that they receive the healthcare that they require. I can't imagine how traumatic it would be for somebody who has had a hip operation to then have to get on a plane, travel to the airport, get on a plane, and then travel back to Jersey. That's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be incredibly traumatic. That's not very good patient care. So I'm unsure exactly how feasible it is. While the savings is a good idea, is it providing the patient care that we want to provide our Jersey residents with?
Yes, thank you for the question, Bob. It's a sad state of affairs in this wealthy island. We've got to send patients away because it's cheaper somewhere else. That's a disgrace. I think it would be a good idea, but what about relatives visiting? What about the aftercare? And as Laura says, if our hospital's not fit for purpose, why are we spending $300 million to improve it? We've got too many people here. That's the strain on the hospital. It's nothing to do with money costing it out. It's to do with the population. There's too many people in Jersey. That's why the waiting list is so long. When we get an immigration policy under control, that's when it'll finish.
I think it's a great idea. It'll certainly bring down the people who are waiting for so long. As for the language, I wouldn't think that would be a problem at all either.
Thank you, Bob. I also agree as well that it is a good idea. I've had very close members of my family who've had to be treated off island because of some pretty debilitating personal problems, and they've had to wait a long time and eventually chose to be treated off island. I do understand very much what Laura says, though, about rehabilitation and people being at a distance from their families, and that certainly would have to be taken into consideration. I've also heard that the hospitals mentioned in France are actually very good as teaching hospitals, and it would be fantastic if we could ensure that some of our future doctors and nurses, or those being trained in Jersey, could spend some time learning about the skills and the technology used in France and bring those skills back into the new hospital that's being developed. Thank you.
It's 9:25. I'll take one more question because I know the panel were hoping to finish at... Yes, I'm trying to be fair. I'm taking from both sides of the floor. And I've seen people this side also with their hand up several times. So I'm trying to be fair. Unless the panel...
With respect, Mr. Chairman,
can I just finish,
you're
please?
You're actually a Freemason and you're fit to argue.
Excuse me, I'm not here to discuss. I'm here as a chairman, Mr. Survey. I've been asked by the candidates to chair this meeting, and therefore, and they are happy. Excuse me, sir. I'm going to continue. I will have to take one more question from the floor. There's a lady here. Excuse me. There's a lady here who's going to ask a question. It's the final question this evening. Thank you, my dear.
Can you tell me how you're going to broach the subject of the use and misuse of zero-hour contracts?
Thank you. We'll start with Jackie Hilton, please.
I was thinking about this actually on the way up here this evening, and I think there is an abuse of zero-hour contracts where people are ostensibly working 37, 40 hours a week, and they're being deprived basically of their statutory rights. So I think that is wrong and that needs to be addressed. I do think there is a place for zero-hour contracts though, and I think the youth service is a perfect example of where that works well. Most sessional workers in the youth service, for instance, only do a certain number of hours, and most of them do it in addition to their full-time job. And because a lot of the youth projects in St Helier are financed through St Helier Youth Committee, for instance, the youth projects rely on allowances and the projects being financed. So I think that is a good example of where they do work well. Thank you.
Higgins, please.
I personally feel that we should legislate against zero-hour contracts. In the main, there are one or two exceptions where people want to take on a second job after the other job. But how many people we got in this island who are trying to eke out a living on a zero-hour contract? And I think it's disgusting. It's the same as, I can also bring in here the idea of the fact that many people are living or earning an income that is not even a living wage. We've got to change our system. Zero-hour contracts are no good for a person who wants to buy a house. How can they go along to a bank and they say, what's your income? And you say, well, I got this week and I got that next week or whatever. Because they don't have a consistent earning. So they won't be able to borrow money for a mortgage. They won't even be able to borrow money at all. And how do you actually even get rented accommodation when you can't even guarantee you can pay your rent? Now, as I say, there are some people who may find them useful, but for the vast majority, they are obscene as far as I'm concerned, and we should legislate to stop them. Thank you.
Yes, I totally agree with Mike. It reminds me of the days when I was about 17 or 18, and to earn some extra money, I was a reporter on the Evening Post getting a very poor wage. And I wanted to earn some extra money, so somebody said, well, you can go down on the docks and get a job. And I was appalled by what happened, because there was this gang of dockers, and they were all, those who could work, they were handed out a medallion, and all the others had to go home. They were all dockers, so some worked and some didn't. And that is what zero-hour contracts mean to me, where the employer can say, we haven't got much business between 9 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock, so you're not going to work then. I've got a friend of mine who is working for the cinema on a zero-hour contract, and they can ring him at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, we want you in today. It's just absolutely scandalous. So certainly, if you elect me, and it comes up, or I might even bring it up, I will certainly say, no way, they shouldn't even be there on the statute book.
Well, I've obviously got to agree the abuse of zero-hour contracts should be outlawed, no matter what. My own son actually was on 0 hours for nearly 12 months in a stable job. Still got a very, very good job. But he went to try and get a mortgage for his first flat, and they turned him down flat because he didn't have a contract. Very, very, very difficult. There might be odd exceptions where 0 hours in agriculture, for example, but certainly there is a definite abuse of 0-hour contracts, and it's got to be outlawed. Thank you.
Any contractual abuse in employment should be outlawed. I mean, that's the way it should be. I have a business, and I have some staff that want to be on 0 hours contracts, and it's their choice, and they want to be, and it suits the way that they work as contract suppliers. But I don't insist that they do that, and I've had a couple that have started like that with us, and then ended up on full-time contracts. So, but any abuse of an employment contract is wrong, and employment there is to protect against that. And I've actually been on a 0 hours contract effectively for 25 years, so I have my own business. And if I don't get the work in, I don't get paid. But I've always ensured that my employees are well protected. We work within the employment law, and if the employment law changed to outlaw 0 contracts completely, I think it would be a shame for some businesses, but if people are abusing them, so it should be outlawed. You must contractually engage with people in a fair and just manner, whatever the type of the contract they're on. Thank you.
Zero-hour contracts, they are horrible things. When it's your only source of income, they absolutely do not provide any benefits to the employees whatsoever. You don't get sick pay, you don't get holiday pay, and you can work 5 days one week, take home £350. The following week you can work 2 days and take home only £125. Now, the issue with that is that Social Security work on a little bit of a delayed system where they can provide people with money when they're in need. So if an individual who comes to the Wednesday and he has no work for the rest of the week, only has £125 to feed his family, pay his rent and whatnot, goes down to Social Security, they can help, but there'll be a delay on that payment that comes. So these are the people who are going to food banks and having to get a loaf of bread and a tin so they can feed their children. It's absolutely appalling, and it shouldn't. The abuse of them absolutely needs to stop. There's very little employment law in Jersey that falls down on the part of the employee. We all know this. We have a government that works for the interests of the wealthy and business interests in Jersey. We need more people in the States who are working for Middle Jersey and below, understand the concerns, have experience with these individuals who are really struggling. I'm a recruitment manager for 5 years. I've been a recruitment manager for 5 years. We have non-financial targets as well. Those targets include meeting 3 new candidates a week. It's a lot, but I'm sure you can imagine over 5 years, that's an awful lot of people. I've had a grown man cry on my shoulder before because his hours have been all over the place every single week. But, Social Security take the view of you are in employment, kind of almost you should be grateful for it, regardless of the fact that it provides him with absolutely no security whatsoever. We need to follow the UK. After 3 months, if you are on a zero-hour contract, you're effectively in full-time employment, then you get the benefits of a full-time contract. I'm pretty sure that after 6 months you have to go on to a full-time permanent contract where you will have, all the sick benefits, the holiday allowance, which is just, this is a right for every employee to have. Zero-hour contracts are for the benefit of employers only, and the abuse of them absolutely needs to stop.
Yes, I'd like to know how they started. I know somebody whose son is on a zero-hour contract, and one week he can pay his mum some money, the next week he can't. The abuse is there, it definitely is. But haven't we got a Jersey Employment Trust? Haven't we got somebody called Jacks that's supposed to protect the working people? Why aren't they looking after these people? Yeah, well, there should be some legislation that's across the board then, and it just protects everybody across the board, regardless of how much the zero contract gives them and how many hours they do. And I think, as Laura says, after 6 months, I think if you're not considered for full-time employment, then that's so wrong. That's really wrong. And I'm sorry you have a zero contract if that's what you have. Thank you.
Zero-hour contracts, I don't believe it's very good because it's very difficult for someone who wants to rent a flat, or anyone who can't afford to get anything, needs to go somewhere and get money to loan money. It's impossible for them to do that. If you don't have the right amount, if your wages has changed all the time, it's also difficult for someone in the Social Security to go to Social Security and ask for a benefit or anything like that. It's just no good. I just don't think a zero contract is good.
I completely agree with everyone else who spoke on the panel. Zero-hour contracts, there have been some appalling abuses of them, and the experiences I've had have been young people who've been on these contracts often for a very long period. It has a knock-on effect on whether they can get a mortgage, but also knock-on effects on what would seem silly things of being able to even get a telephone contract by going to JT. And these are important things. There are, as Jackie's pointed out, some limited occasions where they may be appropriate, but they should be in complete agreement between the employee and the employer that they're of mutual benefit and only in those situations. But on other occasions, especially those in the leisure industry and young people, they are abused, and there shouldn't be any abuse of those contracts or any form of contract.
Since 2008, the financial crisis has been much more of an employer's market, and as the economy has become more globalised, work's been moved to other offshore places in the world. However, within Jersey, as the economy picks up, I think we will be able to legislate, we will be able to try and improve the conditions for regular workers who want a reasonable and just, fair contract. People who it's over 6 months or over 20 hours a week, or within certain jobs. The states also use these contracts as a way of getting money, keeping costs down. So we do need to be thinking about that. But I do think as the economy generally improves, it will be giving workers more credibility to push for better cases, for better terms and conditions. And I also do think that in some cases, not when it's people's sole jobs, some students that I know think that they're good, people who are travelling, and people who want extra work just to fit in around other things that they're doing. They have been very pleased to have them.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now coming up to 20 to 10. I'd like to thank you all for giving your time up this evening to come to listen to the candidates. I'd like to thank each and every one of the candidates for giving their time this evening and explaining to yourselves their views, and I will declare the meeting closed.